everybody. Welcome to our alumni panel webinar. So if you're a student or alumni, welcome. We'd like you to just drop that in the chat. Let us know if you're student alumni and where you're tuning in from. And if you're not with CareerFoundry, that's fine too. Just let us know where you're from. And we'll wait just a couple of minutes, give everybody a chance to log in. All right, we've got California, Germany, Spain, UK, Hungary, Abu Dhabi, France. Very cool. LA. New York. Welcome, everybody. Kazakhstan, Helsinki. All right, lots of students and alumni. Excellent. All right, we'll give it just another minute. All right, lots of people coming in. We've got Colombia, Berlin, Amsterdam, Mexico. Excellent. In Zurich. Welcome, everybody. So my name is Danielle Sander. I'm the alumni coordinator here at CareerFoundry. CareerFoundry is an online school for UX UI design as well as web development. So today we're really excited to have an alumni panel. I'm joined by 5 amazing alumni coming from Germany, UK, California, and even Ireland. So welcome to everybody here. So today is your chance to have just an open question and answer session. So if you want to know what the job search was like, what are some interesting interview questions that were asked, what would they recommend for the first 30 days starting in a job? So anything that really comes to your mind, just shoot. You can put your questions in the chat, and then we'll slowly start. So moderating with me today is going to be Mike McCulloch. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Mike. I am the head of the career services team here at CareerFoundry. I've been a career coach for many, many, many years now. And it's always a pleasure chatting with alumni to find out a little bit about what they liked about the job search process, what was difficult, and where they're at now.
Okay, fantastic. So now we'll have each of our alumni introduce themselves. So everyone, I'll ask your name, which course you took, and why you decided to enroll, and then what you're doing now. So let's start with Helen.
Hello, my name's Helen Tubridy. I'm from Ireland and I'm currently based in Berlin. And I took the UI design certificate. I had previously been working in film and television as a graphic artist. And I really enjoyed the job, but I just wasn't getting a lot of sort of satisfaction from working always project to project and having very little job security. And I started to think about what else I could do. And UI kind of came on my radar then. I was working digitally a lot. My background previously is fine art, so I'm totally non-technical. And I just decided to give it a shot, and it moved really quickly for me. So yeah, now I am working as a junior UI designer, junior UI and UX designer in a company in Berlin called CrossEngage. It's a marketing technology solution. and I found my job 3 months within graduating from CareerFoundry.
Thank you. Welcome, Helen. Lissy, will you introduce yourself next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Lissy. I'm a product designer in Munich. I work at a company called Goodpatch. They're also based in Berlin, and we have our main office, like the big office in Tokyo, but the European headquarters is Berlin, and I work from Munich. Well, technically work from home now. And I did the UI design course. I studied graphic communication before, and I was very print-based, so also very offline. Although my first job was more digital, after that I started working at publishers, and I lost my job, or they closed the office in Munich, and I just kind of thought, what else can I do? And it just so happens that the job center in Germany offers UI and UX design courses through CareerFoundry, and I was like, yay! I think it was my first day being unemployed. I got an ad from CareerFoundry. It's like, oh, why don't you do this course with the job agency? It's like, fair enough, I do that. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Oh my goodness, what timing.
Yeah, very well placed ad on Facebook, I think.
Excellent, thank you. Catalina, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi, I'm Catalina. I'm from Romania and currently based in Berlin. I took the UI design course back in 2018. I started. So before that, I studied economics, and then I taught in a university, business-related subjects, and then I moved to Berlin. And since my German wasn't great, I couldn't continue with academics, and I had several projects in account management, translation, content management, but everything was short term. And at some point, I remember receiving an email from CareerFoundry, and until that point, I've never heard about the UI concept. And I started looking into it, and I said, "Oh, I like to work with my computer. This sounds like me." And right now, I'm a product designer at Soft. It's a startup that is launching this week. It's part of the no-code movement. If you want to know more, ask.
That sounds great. Thanks so much. And Jodi, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool. My name is Jodi, and I'm originally from Texas, but I'm living in Brighton, England at the moment. I finished the course in September, I think it was, of last year. And I was working as a QA tester forever. I just felt like it felt like forever. It was probably about 9 years I was doing that. And I was tired of being at the end of the line and finding all the bugs. And I wanted to be proactive and help prevent those, at least a lot of the usability stuff that I was seeing at the end of the line, which I thought I shouldn't be seeing. So that's why I wanted to change careers. So I took the CareerFoundry certified UX designer course, and that's where I am. Oh, I am currently working at the pensions regulator as their interaction designer.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Nico.
Hi, yeah. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, so my name's Nico, and I live in California, Orange County. And I decided to take the UX design course from CareerFoundry. This was back in 2016. And I was doing a career change from being an account manager from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. and that was the position I took right out of college instead of pursuing graphic design. So when I did that career change, I found that CareerFoundry had, first of all, the price was really competitive. The job guarantee was pretty awesome. I think that was my selling point. And I did the UX course, and 2 months after getting my certification, I started working for the Economic Research Company in Irvine, California. It's a tech company within the finance and compensation industry. So currently I am the product design lead for ERI. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you, Nico, and welcome. All right, we'll kick it off with our first question. And don't forget, you can, for everyone watching, you can post any of your questions in the chat as well as in the Q&A session. Either part is fine. Okay, so we'll start with the first question. So how did you find your current job? This could be through networking, application, however you came across it. And then if you can, also, what were some of the most useful activities that you did during your job search? So why don't we start off with Nico, if that's okay? All right, we'll come back to Nico. Helen, why don't you kick us off with how you found your current job?
Sure. I find my job actually on LinkedIn. And one of my most helpful activities was setting up, well, I generally find the CareerFoundry career 1 month career course super helpful. And my careers advisor was excellent. So reaching out to him was really helpful, and he helped me so much with any queries, and was, so great to have give advice. But one thing I did was set up a spreadsheet of what jobs I applied for and when, and every step of communication I had, whether I got an interview or whether I got an email to say no, or whether I'd been sent a task and I had to complete it, and just really documenting everything so that I could see if I was seeing a job online, because I was applying for a lot, that actually, no, I've applied for it already, or I should check back with them, and it just kind of was a really nice way to like feel very proactive with the job search. So even if maybe, 1 week you didn't see so many jobs, you could kind of already go back through what you've done and kind of reassure yourself that actually you've done a lot, and you can maybe send some emails or ask for some feedback if you've been given a no response, and then take another look at your CV, or sort of do something else rather than just throwing out applications all the time. So that helped me a lot.
Really good advice there. Thank you. Lissy, how did you find your current job?
I found it on Glassdoor, I think, if I remember correctly. It was either Glassdoor or LinkedIn, and I applied for it right at the start of the UI course, and they declined it because obviously I had no idea what I was doing. But a couple of months later, or not a couple of months, but 4 months later, they re-advertised the position, and I applied again using a different email address because I didn't want to seem too desperate. And they actually invited me in for like the first interview. And something that helped me a lot, I prepared a lot of the like typical questions for the interview, and I would turn on either Skype or my photo booth on my MacBook, and I would just talk to myself on the screen and just see how easily I can answer the questions without having to look at the paper. That was something that really helped me. But like Helen said, I really found the career course helped me a lot, especially even though I come from a design background. It's still like the whole application process is completely different. especially going through several stages of an interview was very new to me. And so that really helped me like setting my expectations of what the interview process would be like. Yeah, I told my dog a lot about the interview as well. Like when I went on dog walks, I would just like constantly talk to the dog, just to practice speaking in front of the camera, because the first interviews mostly was digital.
Okay. Excellent. And Catalina, how about you? How did you find your current job?
So my current job was due to a recommendation. After finishing the course, I started an internship with Zalando, and my team lead there, at the end of the internship, asked me if I want to join a small project with a startup that hasn't launched, and I said, okay. I went to a casual interview, and I got the offer afterwards. So it felt very easy at that point. But for getting the internship, for example, I remember also having a spreadsheet with all the jobs that I have applied and what happened in each jobs, and also having a list with the interviews, with the questions from interviews, and all the time like trying to understand how to answer better to those questions. That's my story.
Okay. No, great. Thanks so much. Jodi, would you like to share with us how you found your current job?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with Lissy. I think it was either LinkedIn or Glassdoor, and I found it was through a recruiter, and I normally wouldn't have looked at it because it was a contractor position and I wasn't looking for contract work at all. But I thought, well, they're offering the possibility of a permanent position afterwards, and I was just absolutely terrified from going from having a full-time job for my entire working life to being a contract worker and not having a steady paycheck. I was terrified. So I thought, well, I'll apply for it. And because I thought, well, I'll have to have a 3-month, what do you call it?
Probation?
Yeah, probation period. Every time I come up to that, I forget what it's called. But a 3-month probation period anywhere I go. So I thought, well, I'll just do that because it was a 3-month contract. And I thought, well, I'll apply for it. So yeah, I found that through there. I think the things that helped, that I did a lot when I was applying for jobs, was asking questions to my career counselor. I was asking questions in the Slack channels, and I went to networking groups like mad. I mean, I'm very introverted, and that terrified me, but I went anyway just so I could listen. Because even just listening was like the best thing in the world, because then I got really good ideas from hearing other people's stories, or hearing what they're dealing with at work, and kind of maybe to incorporate that into some of my interview answers or whatever. Because maybe hearing something that they were dealing with at work was something that I had dealt with in the past, and it sparked something in my. I was like, oh yeah, I've done that. I can say that. I can put that as mark that up as one of my strengths or whatever. So I did that. I had a spreadsheet with questions, interview questions, so I would read through that. I kept track of all my jobs and things using this thing called Hunter, which is HUNTR.co, I think it is. So I kept track of my jobs like that, and that was really good. But you only get so many for however long it was. But yeah, that's how I found my job.
Excellent. Thank you. And then for anyone that is still early in the course, or maybe isn't a student of CareerFoundry, the Career Change course that Helen and Lissy referred to as our job preparation course. So it comes at the end of taking a UX UI course with CareerFoundry, and then each student is assigned a career specialist, so someone that'll work one-on-one with you through the job search, just so everyone kind of can follow along in case you're not at that point yet. All right, so Nico, can you hear me? Are you, is your connection there?
I have no idea what's going on.
If he's there
It goes in and out. But,
Yeah.
can you guys hear me?
I can hear you all right.
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, great. Well, we're still on the first question. If
Okay,
you'd like
perfect.
to share with us how you found your current job.
Mhm. Oh, sure. How did I find my current job? Actually, it was through a recruiter. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even for a UX position. The position stated given was for a junior marketing specialist that has that knows something about UX. So that's how I got in. And it was pretty much luck that I landed into my position. The UX design manager ended up quitting maybe 6 months into my tenure there over there, and since I was the only one with any UX position, they ended up giving me his job, and I had to learn everything from the ground up. So that's how I got there. Yeah.
That's what we call a baptism by fire.
Sometimes you get lucky, and if you weren't doing well in the role, I'm sure they wouldn't have put you in there. So
Yes, I asked a lot of questions while he was there, and I asked for a lot of UX related tasks when I was there. So that really helped me a lot when he all of a sudden left, and I had to step in.
wow, that's such a great story. All right, so we can move on to the next question. So how did you prepare to start applying to a job? Who wants to kick us off? Should we start with Lissy?
I think I started for a specific position or in general.
How do you prepare to start applying to a job? Let's say you find a job you want to apply to. So what are your steps there?
I pretty much stalk everybody on their profile. I'm very good at online stalking other people's LinkedIn profiles. I was very active on LinkedIn beforehand already, but I used LinkedIn a lot to see who might be interviewing me, and I had a look at their experience and their backgrounds and what their role is. I researched the company a lot, like what their values are, and then just trying to implement that into answers that they might ask me, just to show that I know what their background is or what is important to them. And I wrote a cover letter that was very specifically tailored to that position. Also trying to, again, integrate some of the things they might have on their website, or some companies have Medium articles, so there might be something that you can pick up from there, that things that they're interested in, just kind of to know your stuff when it comes to them asking you anything. What else did I do to prepare? Like I said earlier, I prepared like a bunch of questions beforehand. Also watched some YouTube videos of like UX processes or workflows from other people. And I had a list of terms that I knew or figured would be kind of a given that you know about them. So I just made sure that I could answer those without having to look at a sheet.
Excellent. That's quite a level of preparation there.
Yeah.
What an act to follow. So does anyone else want to share if how you would start preparing to apply for a job that you found that you're interested in?
I can say a few words. Like, I remember the job preparation course was very, very helpful because it gave me a better understanding of what is expected of me when I do a job search and when I look for a position. I had economic background and I also taught human resources, for example. So I knew the basics, but the course was still very helpful because it allowed me to put everything into a different perspective that I wasn't aware of. For example, the most useful thing was paying attention to your development over the time and not, so the end point is not to have a position. You are aiming to develop your career and you're aiming to know where you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years. And that was great from my point of view. Although in an interview, I hate the question, like where you see yourself in 5 years, but it's very helpful to do this exercise.
Did you get asked that? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
No.
Okay. But still helpful nonetheless.
Not lately. I was asked this question, but when applying for other positions not related to design.
Okay, gotcha. Would anyone else like to talk about Jodi? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I was asked that 5-year question once, not when I was applying for this, but I made the mistake of saying, yeah, I'm going to have a competitive business to yours. And they were like, oh, yeah, no. So don't say that. Don't say anything that has anything to do with anybody other than that company. Just don't.
Yeah, I find it a good answer to that question is always talk about what you want to be doing, not necessarily where or for who you'll be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Good advice.
Yeah. Anyone else want to take a stab at how did you start applying or start preparing to apply for your for a job? Catalina, I think you're the only one who hasn't answered it yet.
No, Catalina answered.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. And I think we're good. The next question we have is actually maybe one for everyone to take a stab at. So what was your biggest hurdle in getting your first job? Who wants to start with that one?
I'll go. I have to say that the biggest hurdle was imposter syndrome. I was just terrified. I was terrified because I was leaving what I knew and I was going to the great unknown. I was absolutely scared. So it just took me a long time to get to the point where I knew I was gonna sit down, because I think what it did was it kept me from really getting into writing the cover letters and being really good at writing them, because I was just so worried about everything else around it, about just leaving and things like that. So once I accepted that everybody else, and this is part of talking on Slack and just sharing all of my fears with everybody, that was the biggest help for me, was just sharing my fears with everybody. And I'm sure some of the people in here have read some of my stuff and like, oh my gosh, I completely relate. Just like, yeah. But I think that was for me the biggest hurdle, was just getting over not even getting over it, but coming to terms with my imposter syndrome and knowing that I know enough to apply for a job. I know enough to sound like I know enough, and just go from there. That for me was it.
Okay. Catalina, how about you?
For me, I remember when looking for a job, I would see like senior positions that were asking for 5 years of experience, then UI designer positions that would ask for 3 years of experience, junior positions that would ask for 1 year of experience, and then internships that would ask me to be enrolled in a university. And I was in neither of those categories. And I was, okay, what should I do? Where do I go? Like, I don't fit in any. And in the end, The idea is to just be optimistic and keep pushing. It doesn't matter what they say in terms of experience. They will be willing to take you in and consider you, even if you don't have how much experience they say in the ad.
Yeah. Job descriptions are like the Christmas list. You ask for everything that you want, and you hope that you'll get at least some of it.
Yes, still processing that.
Yeah. Nico or Lissy, how about you guys?
I don't mind going first. Is Nico still stuck?
No. Okay, go, Lissy. Go.
Hi. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is the hurdles question, right? Because everybody's audio just seems to go in and out right now. I think the biggest hurdle for me was, well, what Jodi said earlier, imposter syndrome definitely is one of that, but convincing companies that they would need a user, what a user experience designer is. Because going into a lot of interviews, what I noticed was, and this was in 2017, a lot of companies had this confusion of what a UX designer is. And when they put it in the job description, at least from my experience, they were actually looking for a graphic designer with UI experience or somebody in marketing. We had a UX position in Orange County at that time. So I had to tailor my portfolio to make it seem like I am what they were looking for, but at the same time, also kind of showing what my UX design expertise is at that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the biggest hurdle for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with everybody else. I also still have imposter syndrome. I don't think it ever stops. I get it in waves. Like I will have a time where I feel really confident. It's like, I can do this. This is really good. And then something happens and it just triggers it again. And you're right back in the spiral. Something that helped me with that was talking to other people. Going to meetups helped me a lot as well, because you would talk to other people there that might be in similar positions, or even that have been in a UI or UX position for a while and they still feel the same. It doesn't really stop ever. It's just kind of accepting it. It's like, that's just how it is. And something that also helped me was the talk by Pablo Stanley, the faker you are, the more successful you will be, which is very funny. And he also has imposter syndrome, and he's been doing design for years. So it never stops.
Yeah, definitely. Helen, so the question was, what was your biggest hurdle in getting your first job?
Yeah, for me, it's the same. I'd have to say imposter syndrome. And also, as Lissy said, it doesn't stop, sadly, because it was sort of a hurdle when I started my job as well. But I think, yeah, like talking to people really helps about that, and just acknowledging it and accepting that you've got it, and but you've got this goal and you want to go for this job, and that, yeah, you kind of need to push through it.
Okay.
Our next question, I think we can go through this one actually pretty quick, is how quickly did you get your job in UX or UI? So I'll just run through everybody. Let's start with Lissy.
So I finished the course in June, I think, and I started my job end of October. So it's about 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And Catalina?
Finished the job preparation in April and got an offer in end of May.
Wow, you're really fast.
Excellent. Nico?
Okay, I finished in May and got a job in July, so 2 months, but it felt like a year.
Yeah, I know. It's job search years are like dog years. All right, and Helen?
I finished in October and I got my job offer in January. There was a bit of the Christmas period messed up my interview process and dragged it out a little bit. But yeah, January, and then I started my job in March.
Great. And Jodi, how long did it take you to find your first job? Current job?
Oh, there you go. Can you hear me? It's telling me you can't hear me. Okay. I officially finished my job prep course at the beginning of September, and I had an interview at the end of September and was offered the job at the beginning of October.
Ooh.
So about 4 weeks.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good.
Don't feel disheartened if it doesn't go that fast.
So another question then, for the people who switched careers, which I think is pretty much most of you, did you start in a junior position, or were you able to leverage previous experience to maybe not be the low person on the totem pole? Who wants to give that one a stab to begin with?
Yeah, I can talk to that one. I did not start as a junior because I went for a contract role, and that was one of the reasons I thought I shouldn't go for one, because contract roles are generally thought of as people who are experts in their industry and they've got years and years of experience, blah, blah, blah. And I had this realization after talking to my careers counselor that I had something like 20 years of experience of doing something that was UX related. And it was like a watershed moment. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can just put that and I tweaked everything. I tweaked my my resume, I tweaked my not my mission statement, but my elevator pitch, I tweaked my cover letter, everything, because it was all going out saying, I've only got, I know I just finished my CareerFoundry course, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that I had all this experience to pull from it. And every time I thought about it, there was something else that I could think. I was like, oh, I could put that. Yes, I've been doing that. I've been dealing with clients for 20 years. I've been dealing with design work for, who knows how, whatever it was. It was just, I was pulling everything out, and it just, it was just, I leveraged all that prior experience to get this, to get the role. So anything you can think of, really sit down and go through your past, everything, even if it's volunteer work, go through it, because there is experience just sitting there and you probably don't even realize it's related.
Catalina, how about you?
So for me, it still feels like a challenge because I don't feel I have the eye to a trained eye. So I remember in my internship, I worked with a senior designer that had a design background, and I could see that she had a different view on the elements. For example, for me, I would move some buttons and put some elements, and then there would be some things that didn't then didn't match, and the senior designer would tell me, oh, but did you look that there is not the same padding on both sides, so having the bigger image. So for me, that was the challenge, going from no design background to design. And the only thing that I did so far was to keep training my eye, like looking at how others are doing it, or looking at how for example, how interfaces are redesigned by some known designers, and try to understand the logic behind it and to get into that logic.
Mhm.
Lissy?
I am technically a junior, although after my probation, I kind of got, I don't know if it actually changes my title, but I got a salary bump. I negotiated that after 6 months. If they feel my experience is not enough, then no, actually, I did it the other way around. I said after 6 months, I wanted a salary bump because I didn't feel like I was a junior, really. Because I come from a similar field, having done design before, so I know how client work works. I know how a project is being set up. So all the kind of ins and outs of a creative project I knew, but obviously I was lacking the experience in a UI UX related position. But I then said that I would not take the salary that they offered for the whole year. I said after 6 months, I would like this to be readjusted. So I kind of negotiated in both ways, but I think technically I'm still a junior. I hope that after a year that will change, though. I don't put it on my LinkedIn.
The junior part, just UX designer.
Yeah, I just call myself product designer because I do both.
Yeah,
Works.
yeah. If you call yourself a junior, people will treat you like a junior.
Exactly. So I didn't add it, and no one said anything, so it's fine.
There we go. Nico, how about you?
Yeah, and this is to piggyback on what Jodi was saying earlier. What really helped me was looking back at my career and looking at my career highlights and looking at that from a UX perspective. Because what it was like looking at your what do you call that? Your accolades, really, and that's what's going to set you apart from coming in as a junior designer versus just a mid-level designer. I applied for a junior position, and as I was going through my career highlights, on top of what my UX, I guess my UX skills was at that time, I was fortunate enough that one of the things that the interviewer for my current position now, what they asked me to do was to do a design challenge. They showed me a really bad website and asked me to redesign it. And I asked for 24 hours to come up with a design and to get back to them the next day. And even though my design was not, I guess, good to look at, I came at it with the purpose of what were the company's goals into redesigning this? What do they want them to do? Do they want this website to get more clicks? Do they want this website to be more accessible? And that was my UX experience kicking in a gear. And my past experiences, being an account manager, knowing what the customer wants, really helped set my goal for that website. So once they reviewed it and they saw what my thinking was as to why I designed this, even though it didn't look good, they knew what my goals were and the direction. So they started me off a little bit higher than a junior. So I was a mid-level marketing specialist, and since I do have UX experience and the company is fairly new in doing UX UI design, I was doing a lot of UX intensive tasks. So when my 6-month review came in, I transitioned from being a marketing specialist to straight up UX designer in my title, because that's been established within the company already. And once the UX design manager left a year later, I took over his role. And that's essentially where I'm at now. I'm almost 3 years into my company, working at my company, and I'm already carrying the product design lead title because of the experiences that preceded that.
Fantastic. And
So for me, I applied for a junior position. And when I went into it, as I mentioned earlier, my imposter syndrome was pretty crippling at times. And I was actually quite happy to have the kind of junior label at the beginning of my job title, because I just felt like, what am I doing here? I don't know anything, and like, I'm not technical. I don't have like business knowledge, but I do have sort of good aesthetic knowledge, and I've worked previously with design and color and art, and I'm kind of, that's my strong set really. So I kind of, I guess, used my junior title to just always say, can I ask a question? Sorry, is this annoying, but I need to know blah, blah, blah. And I just asked and asked and asked and asked questions. And kind of, yeah, I guess just tried to use it as to my advantage, and then also find within that what you are good at. So for me, it was the UI. I didn't actually find that too difficult in combination with all of the questions that I was asking, but also user interviews. My company hadn't really done those before, and as the only native English speaker on my team, they were really like, oh great, then you can you can take charge of these. And it's quite nice to quickly find your place and what you are good at. I also have previous teaching experience, so speaking in front of people and kind of like coaching people through whatever we were working on or was fine for me. So it's kind of yeah, I was, as I said, kind of happy to have the junior role. And then I'm now a year in my post, and they upgraded my position to designer, and with a salary bump. And yeah, so it was quite nice that it was like a stepping up, but that had also been a goal that I had set kind of early on, that I'd like to graduate from the junior position. And yeah.
okay, fantastic.
Okay, great. So I saw two questions in here, kind of along the same line. So this is from Jameson. So for those with a non-design background, did you find that that was a challenge in your UX and UI journey? And do you have any tips for overcoming these challenges? Let's start with Helen. You still got your mic on?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So from I think for me, it's just taking all of my learnings from the course. While I do have kind of an art and design background, it's just completely different. I don't see it at all as the same. So taking my learning from the course, and then reading a lot, listening to a lot of podcasts, going to meetups, really kind of anything that's like the type of design that we're now working on. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Is there anything you did to highlight the experience that you gained during the course?
In my application, do you mean, or?
Yeah, like in your resume, or yeah, in interviews when you're talking about it.
I suppose sort of how you're using design differently, like what your design is helping users to do, and sort of what sorry, I'm not being very articulate. yeah, more sort of what you're helping users to do, what your design like what you're conveying in your design. It's not just sort of a pretty thing to look at, but it actually has a logic and yeah, how you work with that. That's not a very good answer, sorry.
No, that's great. That's great. Does anyone else want to speak to if you have a non-design background? What were some of the challenges that you came across, and how you overcame them?
Okay, challenges from non-design background. Just not having the experience, really, and not knowing where to start. What helped me with that were doing those design challenges from start to finish. You can find them like on the Adobe website or like even on Slack or some UX resources, and that helped me out because it gave me like the knowledge to know how things flow, where you start, where you go for your research, and what the finished product would look like. So it gave me an organization tool, because when we're talking about design, there's a million ways to do it. But when it comes to UX design, you're dictated by how the user would react to it. So you can come up with a really great design, but if the user doesn't know how to use it, then you have to go back to the drawing board. So doing those design challenges really helped me articulate to my team or to my company or to the interviewer how I'm going to approach working for their company.
Great insights there.
I even though I have a design background, I have a tip that it's not my tip. I saw it in someone else's YouTube video, but I thought it was really useful because I get a lot of people sending me messages on LinkedIn how even if someone doesn't have a design background, how they can still do the course or what helps them. And someone said in a video that you can pick a design that you really like or that you think looks good. And this can be from Dribbble, for example. I mean, you get a lot of popular shots on there, so you can see what is very popular at the moment or what is considered to be good design, and you just copy it. And that doesn't mean send it to anybody, but just do it for yourself. Just copy the design, the layout, until you get more comfortable doing the things that, for example, a mobile screen has to have. And also you can use, for example, material guidelines. They have some apps on there that they've designed with the components they have. Just redo them, redesign them, change some colors, whatever, make something up. But just to get into the habit of looking at the project from a visual perspective when you want to do a design course.
That's excellent advice. Thank you. And Jodi, do you have any other tips for people starting a job from a non-design background and how to overcome those challenges?
Not necessarily. I would just echo what Lissy said, because I've been, like I said, I've been sort of doing designy type stuff for most of my life. So I'm kind of in that headspace anyway. So it's a bit tricky for me to step out of it. And but yeah, I think the copying thing is really good. Sorry, I don't have anything else.
No, that's fine. And I definitely think what you mentioned earlier about pulling all of your past experience and realizing the connections that it does make and being able to highlight that is important.
Yeah. Oh, and it was really funny because one of the questions I was asked in my interview was, how do I deal with remote work? And I thought, well, that's a bit of an odd question. I said, well, I've never really had to. But then I thought, oh, wait, I have to do that at CareerFoundry all the time. And so that's what I used to answer that question. And the guy was like, oh, my gosh. And we just kept talking about it. And he absolutely loved the answers I was giving him. So, yeah.
Nailed it.
Something as simple as remote work that you've done in CareerFoundry will help you get a job.
Oh, that's such a good point. So yeah, anybody interviewing right now that's been being asked about remote work, you can always talk about your experience on an online course.
Yeah.
And what it was like collaborating with your mentor and tutor when they weren't necessarily in, online the same time you were, and all of those things. Excellent. Got another question here, kind of related to one that we talked about a little bit beforehand, which is a question from Catherine, which is what types of barriers, if any, did you run into when applying for your first job? So other than imposter syndrome, what else might you have felt was an obstacle to overcome?
I got asked the question what my experience is working with developers, which was a bit of a hurdle like during the interview process because I haven't really worked with them together. But something that helped me a lot was talking to them. Like I befriended some developers and just asked them some questions like, what would you like from like a corporation when you work with a designer? What do you need? What tools do you use? What sort of questions do you usually ask? And that helped me prepare for the interview if that question came up. And also, like in between, you can drop some useful terms just to show that you know a little bit about it.
Anybody else want to take a stab at this one?
One thing that I had, which I didn't do for an interview, and then for each interview after I did, was I was asked at an interview of like if I had to redesign something on their website, what would it be? And it really stumped me because I was nervous with the interview. I hadn't prepared that question, and I was really like, oh, and flustered, and later I of course thought of a much better answer. But for every other interview that I went for, I really made sure to look at the website or the product if I had the chance to, and to kind of do an evaluation of it, of what I liked, so that I could have positives, and also if I had to change something, what would it be and why, and think about that a little bit.
Hey, Nico, you still have your mic on. What's your answer for this question?
And he's gone.
Give him away.
You scared him off.
That's okay.
Well, I had a bit of a weird one. It's not necessarily that it was an obstacle. It was just a bit of an odd thing. Well, it was actually two odd ones. The very first in-person interview I ever did was with a guy who didn't know what he wanted. And he was looking for a person and not some, he didn't advertise the role. I didn't apply for it at all. He headhunted me off my LinkedIn profile. I was like, oh my gosh, your skills, your qualities are exactly what we're looking for. And I'm going, okay. And he basically needed somebody to come in and build a UX department from the ground up. And I'm thinking, I haven't even finished my CareerFoundry course yet. Are you sure? Are you sure? But it was so eye-opening because I got to sit in that interview, and it wasn't like a regular interview. It was just sort of a chat. And I got to see from a hiring manager's perspective, the thinking that goes on when they have to think about hiring for this position. He's like, I don't even know. One of the things he said to me, and he even asked me for advice on, was I wouldn't even know how to interview you after this step. And so I was basically giving him all of the information he needed to interview me on the next step. And I sent him links and everything. But it was just really eye-opening. And I'm so thankful I went through that experience, because it kind of gave me the edge on, I just used everything that he talked to me about, or that we talked about in my other interviews. Not necessarily, not so much overtly, but I did kind of have it in the back of my head. And occasionally there was a time where I needed to say something or needed to address a specific question or whatever. And I drew specifically on that. But yeah, it was really good. And then there was another one and this was an interview with Convivio. And if you don't know who they are, you will want to work for them. Everybody in the world would want to work for them because, oh my God. But the way they interview you is they read your CV and they don't care about the CV in the interview. They've read it. They know exactly what it is. And that's what got you in the door. And I wish everybody else would interview like this because it's amazing. What they did was they asked you about people, like basically they want to find out who you are as a person. So they ask you scenario-based questions. They ask you all these questions about what would happen in the future. If you were given this, what would you do? And it was all about scenarios, just so they could see how you would react and how you think on your feet. And that was a really good process to go through as well, because it helped me with subsequent interviews as far as knowing things about myself to tell the interviewers, being able to think more quickly on my feet about certain questions, that sort of thing. But yeah, not so much, like I said, not so much obstacles, but there's just weird ones.
Well, that's what all interviews should be. It should be about who you are as a person, and not just what you've done in the past. Catalina, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the same, being asked about experience. Like I remember the first two interviews that I got, I was asked to detail or give details about my background in design or something related to UI UX. And I was, okay, let's see how I spin this up. And yeah, I digged some experience from my past. For example, when in the university, I used to do some posters and certificates for summer universities, and I try to leverage those past experience with anything that was related to the job requirements.
Okay. And Nico.
Yes. I kind of dipped out a little bit there.
What was a barrier you experienced in applying to your first job?
Oh, barrier that I experienced in applying to my first job. Okay. Let's see. I'm pretty sure everybody's talked about it already. Experience was the number one thing. Another one is, let me see. You know what? I think the same as everybody. Experience. How was I able to convey that, even though I'm inexperienced, that I was the right person for the job? I overcame that by referencing everything that I did at CareerFoundry. Pretty much, I explained to them, what the course is about, what the goals was. Everything that I've done, and how CareerFoundry pretty much got me ready to do the position correctly, even though I don't have any real world experience. And that showed up through my portfolio that I've done based on the app that I made with CareerFoundry. And yeah, I just had to pretty much tell them that, hey, this is legitimate. These are the things that you will be doing for this position, since you guys don't have a UX design team in place. And yeah, that was how I overcame it, especially in my the interview for my current job now. I heavily referenced the CareerFoundry prompt.
Oh, that's excellent. That kind of segues into a question from Luana, who's actually a student with us. So she said she's in Berlin without any previous US job experience and is wondering how I can highlight the experience I gained during the course to land my first job. Do you have any other ideas about just highlighting the experience from the course?
I think
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
First. So
Yep.
a suggestion of mine would be, I mean, we will have all worked on our portfolios, and kind of by going through your portfolio, trying to identify like what each portfolio piece is demonstrating of what you learned on the course. So just really for each thing, like just thinking like, okay, well, what module did I do and what was in this, and just really trying to extract it so that when you're asked an interview that you can talk about it and what you learned and what you can see in your design, and that would be a suggestion of mine.
Yeah, on the back of that, I would say it is really important to talk about the problems that you encountered. Because I know when I was doing my course, I couldn't get, I'd identified 3 different user bases, and I couldn't get anybody from one of the user bases to interview at all. And that problem, that issue, well, and everything that I learned from it and how I would do it differently was very much something that came up when pretty much every interview I had. So even if the experience, you don't think you've got the experience with the course, but you do, you still have something to draw from, even if it's a mistake or something that went wrong, because you can always say, this is what I would have done differently. This is what I learned from it. So I would definitely bring that up.
I think you could probably even link it to if you have a project that you did during the course, maybe at the beginning, for example, that you might not want to include in your portfolio because you're not entirely happy with it, or you think you didn't know enough about it at the beginning. You could maybe go back to it and reference what you were doing at the time and how you would do it differently now, just to kind of see the progress that you've done during the course. And there was something else I wanted to say. I think like in my portfolio, during one interview, someone said that they really liked the sort of flow I showed in my portfolio. So within one project, that they could see what stages I went through, and I could name the different stages and talk about that as well, like what I did when I did whatever the user interviews, for example. That's something that was picked out when I showed my portfolio.
Great. And then kind of along the same lines is, can I land a job with just my projects from the course?
Yes.
Shaking their head, yes, good. I just wanted to actually jump in with kind of an extension on what Helen said, which is talk about your projects not of just what you learned, but actually what you did and what you produced. Right? Is make it a thing rather than a learning experience, and that helps demonstrate the value of it, and not right. It's the difference. Like I said before, if you act like a junior, you're treated like a junior. Right. Well, if you say, well, this is just something I learned how to do, as opposed to this is something I did, right? That makes it that much more powerful. I've got another, this is actually kind of a topical question. It seems a lot of positions are either on hold right now because of coronavirus, or the number of applicants has certainly gone up because everyone's looking for work right now. So what advice would you give to people who are job searching on what they should do to stand out from the crowd when they're applying to these jobs?
I would say with all the time that we have because of quarantine, now would be a good time to brush up on all the tools of the trade. And so whether it's Adobe XD, Figma, Sketch, or any other like tools, like a lot of designers, when they're applying, they know the basics, but maybe you know something about UI animation that you learned now, and that's something that you can add to your portfolio that not a lot of people would have. Maybe you learn something about user research using SurveyMonkey or other tools to add to your UX research skill set. Those are some things that you can do right now as you're applying for jobs that you can reference when you get an interview. So that's what I would suggest. Yeah.
I would say there are still plenty of online events happening, and you can go there and network. For example, 2 weeks ago, I participated in a design sprint, online design sprint with InnoDays. And you get to know people from everywhere around the world and to work on projects, different ideas. And connect with people.
Something else I would say is take the time to reread your mission statement and your elevator pitch. Is there anything in there that you can tweak? Is there anything in there that doesn't necessarily... My phone keeps thinking I'm saying, "Hey Siri." Is there anything in there that doesn't sort of jump out at you? Is it, when you read it, are you kind of like, oh, it sounds kind of like everybody else's? If there is anything like that, just again, sort of think about your past, think about who you are as a person, and don't be afraid to put some personality into your cover letter and into your resume or your CV. Make a video. We've got plenty of time. Make a fun video if you're applying to fun places. Of course, you have to tailor it to whatever places you're applying to. But I think one of the first things that one of the first places I applied to, they gave me a phone interview, and the first thing they said to me was, "Oh my gosh, everybody in the office has read your cover letter. They've read your application because we were just all so blown away." And they were pulling out quotes going, "Oh my gosh, we love this. We thought it was so funny." And, don't be afraid to have a little bit of fun, even if you think it's a serious suit and tie business, but, make sure you tailor it. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but, I think don't be afraid to let your personality show is what my biggest piece of advice would be from that question.
Yeah, if you put nothing at risk, then you have nothing to gain. Catalina, how about you? Advice?
I already said I go for network.
Moving my mind. Yeah. Anyone else then?
Yeah, I think I would, just to go off a bit what Jodi said, I mean, of course, it's important to stand out from the crowd, but try to not think about the crowd. Actually, try to just think about yourself and your own application package and making it as strong as you can make it, and honing it as best as you can, tailoring it to the applications as best as possible. Is there anything you can take out? Is there anything you can add? Or can you send it to a friend who can read over it? Or just, anything you can do to just make yourself feel as confident about it as possible, that it's really just right. And, if it takes you sort of a whole evening to tailor it to this one particular job, that's good, because you shouldn't be sending the same thing to 20 different postings. So, I would think just try to think more on your own package and what you're sending out to each individual job.
Great. And I think we've got time for one more question. Such a tough decision. I'll have to go with one of my favorite topics. So how important have you experienced that networking and meeting people in the industry was for getting a job? Let's just start at the top with Lissy.
I don't know if it was important for me for finding a job, but it was very important for me to grasp the background of the industry and to see other people talk about certain topics, like what are the terms that always come up, what are the issues that everybody has. And I went to a fair few meetups. We have a very strong sketch community in Munich, for example, and they always had really good topics that they would talk about. And it's just kind of getting in the mood kind of a thing, especially if you come from a completely different background. I think it can be very difficult to kind of get acquainted with how the industry works and what the people are like. And I think it really helps before going for your job interview to have gone to a couple of meetups just to see what the other people are like and what they talk about.
Great. And Catalina, how important was networking for you?
So in terms of finding a job, it wasn't that important, but I would say generally for yourself, it's very important to understand the field, to understand the others that are in the same field. Yeah, going to lots of meetups and you get different ideas. I've been to meetups that are about design, but I've also been to meetups about artificial intelligence, for example, and you get different input from everything. And the idea is to have a broad reach in terms of knowledge and in terms of people.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And Jodi, how have you experienced networking and meeting people in the industry?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit, but I think that as a whole package, networking is definitely an important part of it, because even if you don't get job offers out of it or find out about any available jobs in your area, you still get knowledge which helps you gain confidence. And that, I think, is the most important thing that you can have with you when you go into an interview is confidence. Because if you don't think that you're confident, if you don't think you can do it, then they're certainly not going to think that. So I think anything you can do that will bolster up that confidence in you, do it. So like everybody's saying, doing networking events, and especially going to different ones, because I've gone to lots of different ones like that have nothing to do with UX. Because sometimes, some of them do, like content design. I go to a lot of those things because it relates to what I'm doing, or listening to different podcasts or any of that stuff. But yeah, anytime you can get into a room with a group of people who are similar to you or do anything with that, then there's always knowledge to be had. And knowledge is power, and that power kind of translates into confidence.
Thank you. And Helen, how about you? What was your experience networking and meeting people?
Yeah, in terms of finding my job, not so important. But since getting my job, actually, it's been really important for me to have this sort of wider community that you you can feel part of by going and maybe not talking to anyone, or you can go and you can chat to a few people, and it's really, really nice. In Berlin, the Ladies That UX group is quite active, and they've been a group that I have gone to all of their meetups, and I've really loved and really found a really strong sense of community that's helped me a lot. In my job, there's only one other designer, and I think I lack this sort of, going in as a junior, having made a career change, kind of hoping that I would have this like mentor. And then I was like, oh no, I'm not going to get that. So I've sort of looked to the a wider community to find that, and it's been really helpful. Also, yeah, by going to lots of different meetups, not necessarily UX related.
There, and Nico.
Yeah, for me, it was actually really important. I didn't go into networking thinking I was going to find a job. I went into it looking to meet people that can help me find a job. It was important for me to understand what, designers are looking for with their colleagues, what managers are looking for in terms of, people they're looking to hire. And also at the same time, it's important to know like what kind of skills I would need. One thing I noticed about networking is people love to talk about their expertise. So when you ask someone who's an expert about what they do, you get an inside track of what you need to bring to the table if you do interview for that company, And the bigger, net that you cast, especially, within areas that have a strong like design community, the more likely you'll have a chance to run into that person, let's say at a company that you like. Orange County has gaming companies like Blizzard, Activision. They have Taco Bell here in Orange County. And I've met people that work at those places, and I've talked to them about what they look for, with their about the kind of person they're looking to hire. And those are things that you wouldn't see on a job description or an online posting board. You will only experience that at those networking places. And that's why it was very helpful for me. I would not have known about design challenges at an interview if no one mentioned it at a UX meetup that I went to. So, yeah.
That's great. And I know we're all stuck inside, but I think Lissy mentioned before, there's a lot of the meetups that are happening online now. And even we have a new Slack channel in the CareerFoundry student Slack called Online Networking. So you can always pop over there to see what events are going on around the world in different time zones.
Okay, I think that's about all the time we have for questions tonight. Does anybody have any kind of final words of advice or encouragement for people who are thinking of getting into UX and UI, and kind of what you really enjoy about this, and why it's something that is motivating to you?
I have an advice for when they find a job. You shouldn't get attached to your idea. Maybe you have read that in several places, and it's very good when you stick to it. If you have a task and you have 2-3 designs or different designs for that task, it feels better when the product manager or the senior designer says, no, this doesn't fit, or this is not good. But when you have only one design, you will be very attached to it. And when you get the negative feedback, you won't feel that good. I experienced that in the beginning. So yeah, that's for when you start.
Okay. Jodi, how about you?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things I wanted to say. And this touches back on one of the questions that was asked, is what you can do to sort of stand out is remember to ask for informational interviews, because I did, and most everybody that I asked for an informational interview had never even heard of them. And they were like, what? You want to do what? And they, once they understood what it was, they were just like, oh, wow, that's amazing. No one has ever asked for that. That's so cool. I mean, and so when I finally got to talk to people in the company and for that informational interview, they were like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm really going to recommend that. They were like, I really hope you get the job. And so then you've got somebody in that company in your corner, kind of hoping that you get in. So there's that one. And the other thing is that if you don't have any meetups or anything like that in your area, you can always start one, because one of the ones that I'm in is a really good one, and it's called New Xers, and it's for new UXers. And it's started by a group of people who are new to UX. So what we do is we get people together and we practice presentation skills. We practice all sorts of stuff. Like you could practice whiteboarding or whatever, whiteboarding exercises, interviewing, any of that stuff. And we get more seasoned veterans in to do talks and stuff like that as well. So there you go.
Fantastic. Nico, I'm going to skip over Lissy and Helen for a second and come back to them.
Sure. Yeah. Advice: reach out to people you think that would be able to help you. I know there was a lot of questions here that we didn't get through, and I'll be the first to say it. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I'm definitely there to help you out. And as far as finding a job, hang in there. It's not easy. I think I went on like close to 100 phone interviews within that 2-month span. I started my day at 6 o'clock in the morning with an Excel sheet of jobs I wanted to apply to. It's hang in there. And for the ones that are junior designers now and have gotten their foot through the door, keep learning. There's a lot of resources out there. CareerFoundry, YouTube, all those other places, Adobe. I still find myself going back to my May 2016 course, looking at what I went through if I need a refresher. Because, sometimes we forget that, the best way to move forward is to go get back to basics. So, and as far as getting interested in things that you love to do, I was interested in UX and UI design because even though I find myself a creative person, I have so much ideas, I don't know what idea is good. What I like about UX design is it's dictated by how the user reacts to your idea. So I could have a million ideas, but if the user only attaches to one of them, that idea is the one that I would run with. And that's why I love UX design. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Fantastic. And Lissy, how about you?
I actually I remembered something that was a hurdle for me when I started applying for jobs or in general in the industry, was that I didn't want to admit that I was new to the field. So often I would go to meetups, not trying to behave in a way that other people would see, ooh, she's a junior, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But don't be afraid to ask questions, because it's better. It always looks better if you ask a question than if you get caught out not knowing the answer, pretending that you knew. And that's also something that I still work on. I find it hard admitting that if I don't know something, but it's always better asking and finding out, and then it might be something completely different than what you thought it would be. Or just get really fast at Googling stuff on the go, if that helps.
Google on speed dial. And Helen,
Yeah.
last word goes to you.
As Nico said, I'm really open if anyone wants to reach out on LinkedIn. I find it really, really helpful. When I was considering making the career change, how open anyone was that I spoke to about UX and how generous they were of their information. I find that with anyone I reached out to, and it was so encouraging and nice, especially coming from the film and television industry. So yeah, please feel free. And something that I found really useful was always including a message when I'm reaching out to people on LinkedIn to say hello and why you're connecting, because people, I think, really appreciate that, and then you generally have actually a conversation rather than just a random LinkedIn connection that you don't really know why you're connecting or who has connected you. I find that quite useful, and yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. Fantastic. That's been really great advice from everyone. So thank you all for making time in your day to come jump on the webinar with us. Of course, we have people all over the world at the moment. So thank you very much. And wish you guys all the best. Danielle, any final words from you? You're on
Your
mute.
mic is off.
Of course it is. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your advice with everyone out there. It's just so nice to do this all together. All right.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
rest of your day/evening. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.